Hello all, this is Kevin McCain with Idaho Art Classes and Kevin McCain Studios. I'm just going to show a little demo today of what we call construction, and we're going to lay it out here on this little piece of paper here. I'm doing it of this little bottle that you see around the corner, a little green teardrop shaped sort of wine bottle. And so anyways, when I do my classes, a lot of times people ask what makes a classical class versus a non-classical drawing class. And really most of the classes were classical in nature upwards of about 50 years ago, and especially the classes from the Renaissance. The biggest difference is that they really emphasized, I guess I should get a pencil you'll be able to see, but they really emphasized the mother shapes, the square being the mother of all shapes, and then within that square we can use diagonals and things to measure and stuff. And then within that mother shape of a square you can also put a triangle, and within our mother shape of this a rectangle. Of course, this rectangle is very square-like, and squares are rectangles. Rectangles are not squares, but you can fit within this rectangle. You can fit a triangle. You can put in a circle, and out of that circle you can develop it into all kinds of polygons, right? So we've got a little circle over here as far as that goes. And again, so within this triangle we can put a circle, we can put a triangle, develop that circle into all kinds of polygons and so forth and so on. And so that's what the traditional classical classes from the Renaissance were based on, these basic three mother shapes. And the one that's the mother of all would be the rectangle, or in this case the square. So when you're dealing with perspective, whether basic or intermediate or advanced perspective, it's all about squares, and as you really get into it, you get into diagonals and other things, which means you're really working with triangles. And that's all that perspective is you're working with rectangles and triangles, and then the way they stack creates this feeling of dimension. And that's how you've got all your 3D programs and 3D games are all based on these basic shapes. And so we use that in drawing. And so I'm going to show you just a real quick type of one of the things we talk about. In my beginning one drawing class, we talk about all the main ideas of creating good value drawings, good line drawings, dealing with some different techniques, dealing with basic perspective, putting shapes within, using the rectangle. And so if I look at this, I have this little, again, that bottle over there. I can use, for that bottle, I can use a triangle that I have right here. And I can take that triangle and I can marry that triangle to a sphere, or pardon me, a circle, because this is not dimensional. It's two-dimensional, not three-dimensional. That's what I meant by saying dimensional. It doesn't have a third dimension, so that means it's a circle. It's it's a 2D shape. So we married, and this gives us our belly, that triangle, and then that triangle comes in and it marries itself, or in other words, merges itself to another rectangle. And then the flaring of the bottle where the cork sits, again, is just another rectangle on top of a rectangle. And if we were doing the little cork itself, again, the little cork would be a little rectangle sitting on top of another rectangle. And then under here, where we have this sphere, we have another. Now I've cut the triangle off, but we have another triangle down here to complete the basic overall shape of our wine bottle over there. And so this is just what we call construction, and we use a center line and we use these basic shapes. Of course, this is, again, just two-dimensional. There's no volume to it. We don't have the cylinders, because this is essentially, if I slice this up, this would be a succession of elliptical, little slices, because this thing is cylindrical. But so let's say I was doing this for getting what we would call a silhouette. And again, I would be doing this very, very light, very, very gently, so that I could then come back and modify it as I need to. So understand, I would not leave those shapes; they would be erased. That way, when people come over and ask you how you drew it, and go, "Wow, you must be magic," you go, "Uh-huh, yeah, exactly." But these are just basic ideas that have been around for hundreds of years. And it's a way of simplifying, because the biggest secret that most people don't tell you in our classes is that artists simplify all the time. We need stuff to be simple. It's hard enough as it is. We don't need it to be harder, we need it to be simpler. So we simplify all these shapes, and through simplifying it, we can then make it more complex and make it look like the object. So, we're constantly looking at ways that we can simplify an object. It's like when we're doing perspective or a cube, you can turn that cube in all kinds of directions and get all different kinds of perspectives. But for most artists, they'll simplify it into one of 3 to 5, turns. And so that way they're not having to, do all these different little variances and nuances. They'll simplify things and turn it within 1 of 5 degrees. Now, if you want to get more detailed, you can do a simple object and do it very easily. But of course, if I'm doing a collection of objects and buildings and cars and everything else, you're going to want to simplify. You don't need to make it harder. It's going to be difficult enough. But anyway, so I've got this. And of course, at some point, we can actually put on the fact that these are elliptical. We go ahead and redefine this and put on the fact, again, that this shape is, because this was really to help us with the outside contour. At some point, we actually have to come over here and make this into a three-dimensional object. In other words, it's elliptical. So we have these labels on here. They're going to be going around in an elliptical pattern, and we have these different things that we're going to look for as we're drawing to help us draw the things much more accurately. And so we can use these simple shapes to help us construct and to think about the entire object. So again, this is a construction where we're still using the basic shapes, and we also we also are already using a center line for this. When you're doing drawing, you're going to really try to start using center lines just as much as possible. Now, I'm not peeking around the corner as much as I should be, because I don't want to be getting my head in the way of the camera. But understand that I'm thinking about this object's volume, like this little label right here. First off, I think, because I'm kind of at an angle while I'm drawing, so I think I'm getting a little bit of an angle with this thing. It's not perfectly straight. But I'm also going to want to be thinking of the fact that this is elliptical. There's going to be sort of a smile to that. And so this is going to want to smile here, and this is going to want to smile there. We want to think of the fact that this is elliptical, and at some point, an ellipse is just a circle in perspective. That just means instead of seeing all of the circle like so, we've just turned it so it's in perspective, and it becomes an ellipse. And sometimes people will say oval when they mean ellipse, and it's probably just important to point out that an oval is an actual egg shape, and an egg has a pointed side, and a rounded side. So one side's more round, and the other part of the egg then becomes more of a beak, if you would. So it's not a round shape. An oval is not a round shape, or it's not a circle in perspective. Whereas an ellipse actually is. It's a circle that is supposed to be the same right to left and top to bottom. So anyways, this is construction. Again, we've used rectangles, triangles, and circles to then draw this object. And this is how we're going to want to approach many of our objects. Anyone who's seen books on how to draw people, or books on how to draw animals, or you name it, usually they're going to end up with drawing with very simple shapes. And it's the way that we can control the look of an object, or the basic proportions and the basic height to width ratios, and what are the basic shapes. We can capture it with construction. So if I'm drawing a car, I might start with a box, a rectangle, and then develop it into a box, and then develop that box into a car. If we're doing a person, we might start with an egg shape, develop that egg shape into, breaking it down, putting the eyes where they go, the nose where they go, the mouth where it's supposed to go, and then start to put some of the structure on it and the landmarks, and now you have a head. So you're starting with simple shapes and then making them into more complex shapes. So this has been Kevin McCain with Kevin McCain Studios and Idaho Art Classes, and I hope to see you in one of my classes so we can talk more about shapes and how important they are. Have yourselves a good day.